Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Strength Agenda Radio. I have lost track of the episodes because my ADHD is kicking hard this morning. My name is Tom. That beautiful gentleman over there is John, and we have our second ever guest today down below, Craig O'Hearn. He is a wrestler, he is a fitnesser, he is double fisting caffeine currently at this moment, which we cannot be more excited about. Craig, thank you for joining us this morning. John, good morning. Bite me. Uh, with that, Craig, thank you for joining us, my man.
Absolutely. This is awesome. I'm glad to be on here with you guys.
Yeah, we're excited. So, guys, I know Craig through CrossFit Warehouse. So we both have the privilege of being able to coach at CrossFit Warehouse. Um, Craig's a phenomenal coach, absolutely a phenomenal coach. He runs the boot camp program as well, tortures people for an entire hour in boot camp, and they come back week after week, session after session, and couldn't be more happy. Even though at the end of the workouts, a lot of them look like they'd like to strangle you. Um, but one of the things that I'm really excited about is we're wrestling nerds on this podcast as well. As you can tell by Tom's trophy he's got there for the barbell class that I coach at Warehouse, we have a WWE belt that changes hands. So, Craig, you have a very
You're the actual wrestler. We're just a bunch
yeah,
of
right. You're the actual wrestler on the podcast, and you have through our conversations together, like you've got a fascinating like experience with wrestling. Like you've interacted with like WWE, you've wrestled on the indie circuit for what I assume is 100 years based on the number of videos that you share. But I'm super excited to have you on and talk about like wrestling, dude.
Yeah, no, it's a sickness at this point. I feel like every time I start talking to someone, like everyone's like, "Oh, you did pro wrestling." I can see Amy roll her eyes, and she walks away from me. Amy's my fiance. She is over it. But yeah, no, it's been a part of my life forever. I've been doing I did pro wrestling for 14 years, and then as you can see by
Oh,
my Instagram, I did all the backyard wrestling when I was a kid, which nobody ever talked about. But now it's fun. Like you can kind of
yeah.
shed a light back on that,
Oh, yeah.
and somehow it's accepted. It's crazy, but
We were talking about that I have a group chat that I'm in, and it's a bunch of weightlifting and wrestling guys or whatever. And we actually had a discussion about that the other day where for a while there, WWE in particular, because they were the main brand, had that disclaimer of like, please do not send us, it was like the Jackass disclaimer, like, please do not send us videos of you doing this or whatever. And now you see guys like Darby Allin, who's with AEW, and that was essentially his claim to fame. And like the backyard wrestling, like the shenanigans on like the mattress made, crash pads and all of that nonsense that like we were doing as kids, or like the indies were doing back in the day, because they didn't have like the arenas and the stadiums and the things like that to perform in. That's all starting to come back now. And like I'm drawing a blank on the name of the wrestler, but there was a guy on AEW for a while who, like, some of his backyard stuff was part of his intro video. And I thought that was like absolutely insane. And then you see stuff from like the Hardys back in like the 90s and
yeah,
stuff like that, of that, like their stunts and stuff. I do think it's kind of interesting how um I'm gonna say relaxed like professional wrestling has gotten. Like you like it like I feel like WWE, especially during the McMahon era, was very like tight-lipped. Like you couldn't say these certain words, you couldn't whatever. And now as a casual viewer, like I couldn't tell you the last I watched a little bit of the Royal Rumble. That was about it. But I feel like it's become a lot more relaxed. Like people are able to have fun with it. Like you have like people from like the companies like hanging out and talking and are friends and things like that. Whereas like back in the day, like if somebody from WCW and WWE were hanging out, like it was taboo. Like you couldn't talk to those guys or anything like that. So it's really cool to see like kind of the relaxedness of it. And then that bleed out into guys like yourself who have been on the indie scenes and who have those connections, and like people getting referenced from the indie scenes on like main TV or in interviews and stuff along those lines. So it's for somebody who's been watching it since they, learn how to walk and talk, like it's really cool to have seen like the evolution from almost like a movie product to like more of a reality. Like this is where like this is like how everybody, came up. It's just now you're allowed to see it, sort of like I guess that fourth wall, like being almost
yeah,
completely down at this point.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, and I don't know, when I first started, a lot of always people always say like, oh, I was born in a great time. Like, I know what it's like to be before the internet and I know what it's
Yeah.
like to be after, and you get the idea. I feel like with starting with the indies, I feel like I had a good time to get in. I started training like 2009. Like I graduated in
Mm,
'08,
wow.
and then like 2009, I was like, I'm a pro wrestler right now. I want to do this. So, a bunch of us were already backyarding together. So like, friends like mine, like Nick and Castro, a bunch of guys I grew up with. And we started going to pro wrestling school together. And the good thing was we went to like an old school pro wrestling
I
school.
was going
We
to ask
trained
which
with
one did you
Steve
guys go
Boz.
to?
We went to Steve Boz, so it was the CSW
Yeah,
training
yeah, yeah.
academy.
Okay.
And we learned through old school, like the way it was. But it was like a time where things were shifting and changing, and that was awesome because we loved the faster, like Ring of Honor, like more quick, like
Yeah,
indie
yeah.
style. And these guys didn't like that style, so it was like we learned. We always were like, oh, we want to do the fast stuff, but we learned the basics really
Yep.
well in the beginning because we had to. And then we started like a little bit early on going like, oh, this is awesome. And we know the basics because now we're easy to work with. And then we can take what we do fast and then we can learn to be tighter with it and be quicker. And then we can adapt that style onto the indies. And we now are a little bit more useful because we can do that fast, quick style. But then also, if you put me in the ring with like someone like one of the bushwhackers or like one of the killer bees, like an old school guy, I can still work that real simple Memphis style or whatever, and keep that match kind of making
Yeah.
sense, and keep my legs underneath me and learn to listen and all that stuff. Because if you don't have both, you're going to look like a spot, like a
Right,
synchronized
right, right.
swimming wrestling match where everything's like super choreographed, like
Yeah, yeah.
Ricochet or guys like that. But then having that basic background, because I mean, at the end of the day, like when you go to a wrestling show, between all the spots, there is a story and there is a flow, and then there's
Oh,
good and
yeah.
evil, and there's all that thing that
Hmm.
you love as a fan.
Yep.
But for me, being such a fan but wanting to do it, it was almost like for years I like was like tunnel vision to the story. I just wanted to do the moves. But then
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
learn to take the moves and put the emotion, it's all
Yeah.
over it. And that's the way it is now.
So I have two questions then for you here. Well, first is a thought. I like what you said about the story because for lack of a better term, guys who watch wrestling get made fun of, right? Like, oh my God, I can't believe it. You know it's fake and blah 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 blah. But that story part that you mentioned, so like I did like musicals and stuff like that in high school. Had a theater scholarship opportunity for college. Decided to be a teacher, which was just as much of a bonehead move on my part. But it was one of those situations where like I appreciated the art of it, and that was what drew me to wrestling. Was like I used to sit there for hours and watch like the WrestleMania vignettes leading up to the Mania match where they would like catalog the story. And I think for a while there, that's what pro wrestling lost was like they were just AEW in particular. They had like a middle part, like they're doing better now, but like there was a middle part of their run where they would just it was just matches. They were just all they were concerned about was putting on 5-star matches and there was no storytelling during the match. That's like one of my favorites, like of all time, is Roddy Piper. Like the story he would tell during the match, being a heel. And for those who don't know, you have your bad guys who are your heels, you have your good guys. I always liked the heels. Like it was just always my personal, like I love the NWO. I still have like my shirts. I have an Eddie Guerrero shirt, all that stuff. But like I think that's the thing that you like that I appreciate that you brought up is like people like just look at it from face value and it's a bunch of oiled up muscle guys just beating the shit out of each other and choreographing a fight essentially. But like if you really like pay attention to it, like there is a story that goes like all the way through it. And I
Yeah.
really appreciate that you brought that up and like that was like because that answered part of my next question here. You were like the one once I realized to take the moves and put the emotion behind them and like tell the story, like that's where it took off. My question for you though is when you first got started in your school, what was your like, oh shit moment where you're like, this is not what I thought it was going to be? And it was kind of a, like a steep, it was kind of like one of those like shit or get off the pot type like moments for you, like when you first got involved in the school. Like, what was that moment for you?
And believe it or not, it's kind of like one and the same. Like, because
Okay.
and if you've seen any of my backyard stuff, like we were
Yeah.
doing, and I still think, like, and not to sidetrack, but for context, I think
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
good. Like, the world of pro wrestling right now is really built off the backs, and I don't and if people don't understand what I'm saying, just look into this a little bit. There used to be this thing called the Backyard Wrestling Link. It was online. It was a message board, and we all posted in there. There's a documentary online. A friend of mine, Andrew, or Lee Liss, I guess his name was Lee Andrews. He made this documentary, and it kind of put some context to it. But that message board wasn't like a Backyard Wrestling message board where we just were like, oh, we're hitting each other with light tubes. And we were trying to emulate styles of wrestling that are very important. You know, you got your strong style wrestling, you got your lucha wrestling, you got like all your technical, you know, all like the British style. And we loved that so much from a standpoint of like there are fans, and that's great. You need fans, but then there are people that are like, I think this is for me and I can do this, but I'm such a fan too, that you stick to like the candid pieces of it. Like I want it to look right. I want it to feel right. Even if I didn't have the training and I was 14, I wanted it to feel like I was watching these types of wrestling matches. So we all posted in this message board and we shared videos with each other. And we did that for years, and we would travel and meet each other. That's why a lot of those backyard clips I post are like, time and place. They have to be. I'm like, this is 2009 and I was in Pennsylvania. I wasn't there on business. I was there wrestling with my friends. And we learned to work with each other in a way that I think is hard to emulate because there was no money. We were recording it for ourselves. We didn't even think about the internet. There was no viral videos. It was just for us. So taking all of that and then going to wrestling school and having like all of this deep understanding knowledge that they don't understand that I can have. But also back then, if I were to be like, well, I've been backyarding with my friends since I was 2001 or two, they're like, that's backyard wrestling. It's stupid. But they don't realize like the type of, like they say, like a professional, 10,000 hours, right? We had so many hours underneath us working together, not just beating each other with weapons, like trying to structure matches, trying to learn how to tie up and get like the wrist and do the collar elbow tie up and like working the right side and working body parts and telling a story. So when I showed up to wrestling practice, I thought I had all of this knowledge in my head. But then the oh shit moment was, what do you do in front of a real crowd that at any moment in time could turn on you? They dictate different pacing and matches. They might not like you. You might be the baby face. You come out and they go, I hate that guy. So it was learning to like not only take what you know how to do, but how to apply it in real time that makes sense. Because the story, even though I'm planning the match, the crowd is dictating whether that story gets to the resolution you really wanted it to be, or if they're going to change and write their own story, then how do I adapt? Because if I come out like Rock and Hogan, WrestleMania, perfect example. They thought that was going to go one way, and the crowd let them know this is not going the way it's going to go. And they had to maybe change the way they approached that. They thought it was going to go totally different. It happens all the time. But I think, you can just leave that over there. Thank you. For me, like the oh shit moment was like, okay, well now I have this match. And then what happens when something goes wrong? Because when it was our friends, we just make an adjustment on the fly. Right. Yes, right through here. Good morning. Sorry, I'm right in the middle of the gym in the morning. You know, we can make an adjustment on the fly. But when I'm in front of a crowd, I can't go, sorry guys, let me reassess really fast. So that was that big oh shit moment of being like, when I'm out there, I'm out there. And whether I really realized if I signed up for this or not, but I'm technically a performer that they paid to see. So I have to really get my shit in check. And I think that was a really big moment of being like, oh, they really are paying to see the show, and I'm the show. Yeah. And I think, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off.
No. Go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
I was going to say, I think a lot of people, and now I think being a little bit removed from pro wrestling a bit, and like going to some shows, just seeing new like talent that are kind of coming into pro wrestling in this like very modernized, everybody knows everything era, versus like when I started and there was still some kayfabe and illusions of things. I think now people forget that the story is the most important part, but also that you are a performer. It's not just you're doing your thing. Like I think some people realize like, this is my match, but this match is on a show with other matches. And how does my match fit or affect the main event? Or how does this match take away from something else? If I went out and I did everything under the sun, I didn't sell anything, I looked like $1 million, I beat the hell out of my opponent and I left, everyone's like, what the hell is that? You look like you were Iron Man, nothing hurts you. Why are you not the champion then? Why are you burying your opponent? And why does the main event have less than what you guys, or why do they have less and you guys did more? So there's a lot that goes into a whole show as far as, you know, how your match fits on it, what you bring to the table, what the promoter's looking for you, and if you're willing to listen, which I hope, but I think that's something that's different. I feel like everybody's in it for themselves or in for the viral clip, which I get it, but if the shows themselves aren't, you know, built to be like a consistent storyline, to where when you watch the show, it kind of flows like a big story, and every match kind of works in tandem to make it a bigger show. I think that's something that is kind of a little in the weeds these days, but you know, it's just different. Everybody's learning differently.
So, okay, now, John, do you have a question or no? Oh, you're good. You're good. Sorry.
I do, but I got dogs going nuts in the
Oh,
background.
you're good. You're good. All right, so I'll ask my question then. All right, my question for you is, okay, like the big thing is like, you know, people watch wrestling and you see different body types, right? You see guys who look like, you know, professional bodybuilders. You see guys who look more like the powerlifting type. You see guys who look more like, you know, your average dude that will just like go up, walk into a bar and just like beat the snot out of somebody, right? Like, you know, that dude can cause some problems, but like if you were coming down to like a fitness competition, like he ain't winning nothing, right? How much does like training outside of like wrestling training, like in terms of your cardiovascular fitness, your muscular endurance, like when we're talking about like those big pieces of fitness in particular, right? Like strength, power, speed, balance, agility, coordination, all that. Well, how much of that, like, do how much more of that needs to be added to your regimen, stuff like that outside of it, and like how much of that separates like guys on different levels, like throughout the industry and such?
Hey, that's a huge question because like that it really is the difference in like, you know, someone who's in shape may not be in ring shape. And I see it all the time. Like guys that look great aesthetically and they show up to like wrestling practice and they're like, today's the day, I'm gonna be a pro wrestler. There's always a little bit of like, well, I think you think this is an aesthetic only thing. But
Yeah,
we know that everybody has a plan until they get hit. Everybody has a
yeah,
plan until they get the wind knocked out of them, and it's a different world. So the training for that, you know, like for me, like like honestly, like when I first started getting into wrestling, that's how I found CrossFit. Like that was how I found it because back
yeah,
in 2010, CrossFit was not how it is now. It was definitely not accessible, and it was kind of a weird, like it felt like a superhero training program. It felt like the only people who did CrossFit back then were complete psychopaths and people
yeah,
that were like very big into intensity. So I found it as a way of being, you know, a better pro wrestler because it mimicked the
yeah,
intensity of a match. You know, like things are quick, things are fast, very, very big spurts of energy. And then, you know, with interval training, you know, there's the lulls of matches, work,
yeah,
you get
yeah,
a little bit of rest. So things like that, it kind of fit. I was like, this is perfect for wrestling. But the component that it misses a lot of times for people is that, you know, you can lift, get stronger and faster, but there is nothing that can replace getting slammed or getting hit. And
yes,
I have seen, I have been in the ring with people, and I always will say this, and I will live by this. I'm probably one of the most respectful workers you'll ever work with. I never want to hurt you. I never want to put you in harm's way. I fully believe that, and I've said this before, that the pro wrestling side of like working together is honestly one of the best bits of teamwork because you're working together to make a match. You're on
yeah,
opposing storylines, you're on opposing thoughts. It shouldn't make sense that you work together, but you have to. So, you know, I'm very well aware that my life is in your hands and your life is in my hands. So, you know, when you're starting to train and you get that feeling of the first time you get hit or the first time you get slammed, there's like an internal thought of like, well, did this affect my ability to support the person? Like, am I going to be so winded from being slammed? Am I going to be so rattled from being hit that I'm not going to be thinking clear? Because I've had it happen. I know I'm a nice guy, but I'm a snug. I don't want it to look like this isn't like pee-wee football, right? Like we're in it, we're moving. If I'm hitting you, you got to be able to get ready for it. And I've seen the life leave some people, even with like a snug forearm. It's not gonna kill you, but it's just boom right here, and
right,
it's
right,
snug. And I've seen their eyes roll back because they're not used to getting hit. So like you got to get ready for stuff like that. It's a physical sport. You got to be tough to do it. Like you have to be mentally tough too. And I think now there is no middle. I think they're the best in the world, and then there are the people who think they can do it because the world said they can do it, and they might as well have just gotten a participation award because I've seen them wrestle, and all it takes is just 2 minutes of watching you work around the ring, and I go, you ain't in. You think you're in it, but
Yeah.
I don't know what you think. Like, and if you go to some indie shows now, that's the thing. You go there, pro wrestling, but we know this. Not all pro wrestling is created equal. The same way all gyms in the world aren't created equal. If I went to a
Right. Yeah.
CrossFit gym down the street and I'm expecting them to be the way we are here, I might be crazy to think that that quality could match. It could, but there is no way of knowing unless you go and see. So the product of pro wrestling now, I think, is so one or the other. It's either the best or it's the worst.
Yeah. I want to shift a little bit because I think it's well, I guess it's not really shift. It's kind of building on what you were just talking about is I also think people don't realize the level of athleticism that's involved in what you're doing because you guys are not only are you moving like you're talking about, right? But like I've seen the videos where you're doing backflips off of top ropes and you know those kinds of things that are just like insane, like leaps from like the ring to a table that's really far outside of the ring, right? That's a high level of explosive athleticism. When you guys are training for that, you mentioned like using CrossFit, but that's a different thing. Like you're not gonna you might develop some explosiveness like doing CrossFit, but that level, like how do you guys train for that? Like how are you guys training for those really high, like complex movements?
And I think that's another one of those like those are the good questions that I think honestly I think a lot of people getting into wrestling don't ask themselves like are you willing to not only put the work in to get you to the door to do your first match but are you looking to consistently get better but also realize that this is not a forever thing. So as you age and as you get older and maybe injuries happen, how do you pivot to keep the safety of you and your opponent in the forefront and learn to take calculated risks. So yes, I dive out of the ring onto somebody, but it's a calculated risk, right? There's a couple of questions you got to ask yourself before you do something like that. Who's the most at risk? The person I told lay on that table and take this from me because I thought it would look cool? Or is this equally beneficial to the story? Like, okay, I'm going to give you this splash or I'm going to give you this pile driver, something crazy, right? But is the risk worth the reward? Is it going to be something that I can guarantee to a high extent that you're going to be safe? Well, I hope. But also, is it something that's going to be like we think high risk, low reward, right? Like a punch right to the face. Yeah, it looks cool. But when they go home, they're not going to be like, do you remember in the match where that guy punched that guy in the face? They might be like, that was cool in the moment. What they're going to remember was all the things that led up to the big finish. Maybe the big
Mm,
finish was I hit my final pile driver, 1, 2, and you kick out, and they're like, Jesus Christ. Now, calculated risk, pile driver, scary, but did it play to the match more than the punch square to the face? Yes. And now we have something we can do with this. Maybe I get up, maybe I argue with the ref. The ref's telling me, no, it was 2. And then I turn around, he's schoolboy, 1, 2, 3. The crowd goes nuts. Calculated risk, big payoff. Versus
yeah.
pile driver on the ground, you kick out of it, I don't sell anything. And then we just fumble around the ring for 10 more minutes. And you're like, well, that was a crazy spot. But I'm not emotionally connected to it now because you just
Mm,
did it. And then you just pretended like it was something regular, right? All of the calculated risk has to have some type of payoff. It has to have something that adds to the
sure.
match, something where the whole crowd sees it and they're like, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Or maybe if it is something where you're a little weary on it, maybe you have to sit there and say, okay, well, if things go right, good. If things go wrong, well, what's the payoff? If it goes wrong and I break my leg or break an arm, you know, is somebody going to look back and go, that was the craziest thing? I can't believe he got hurt, but that was the craziest match. Or are they going to go, these are just 2 dudes fumbling around in a gymnasium and one of them got hurt? I
Yeah,
think that's a big question you always got to ask yourself.
sure. The so I want to shift into a little bit about like your life through wrestling because I've seen pictures, right, where you're holding a championship belt, right? And you've talked about like being recognized in a lot of different areas. right? As a
Yeah.
wrestler, like being brought in. And also I want everybody to know, like, what did you prefer to spend your time as? And what did you spend most of your time as? Were you a baby face or were you a heel? And why?
I was always a heel. And I think and
Yeah.
I've been on like anybody that is listening to this for some reason, if you know who I am, and that's the reason you're listening to this, you probably heard this story a million times. I always say that I've always choose to be a heel because I think good level-headed, nice people make really good heels. And I think slightly like there's like a part of you that as a good person, like what you hate in people in the way they act or the way they talk to people or they bully people around. And I think you can channel that and use it against the audience because it's something is so out of the normal to act or say or be or do that when you do it, there's like this weird little like you can add like an acting swagger to it. And that's like for me, the way I act as a heel is like an exaggerated version of somebody I don't like. And
Hmm.
it's like a cocky, very arrogant, but also like very chicken shitty kind of person. Because the person that I don't like is someone who is very arrogant but can't back up anything they say. But that, believe it or not, makes the best heel. Unless
Hmm.
you're a tough powerhouse heel, which I could do that, and I've done that. I did it at freelance for years, where I was the hard ass, but I also backed it up. But entertainment wise, there is nothing better, especially, and I'll tell you this. I know you got a part of a question I want to get back to here, but I'm telling you, go to a market, no one knows where you're at. And if you're thinking about, okay, how am I going to get this crowd? Because I always sit there, I get to a place, they don't know me, I don't know them. I'm working with a babyface local hero, and he's over as you could imagine. Do I come out and just do the like, you suck? No, they've all seen that. But what they don't usually get is the heel that starts and really tries to get in their head. Like he tries to psychologically get in their head. And then the second when things start breaking down, they start falling apart. And then they go, well, that dude came up to me and he got in my head and now he's losing. And they get like emotionally connected to seeing you lose now. And then they start cheering and they start getting behind the baby face. And if the baby face maybe isn't that over, it's like a built-in cheat code for them because they hate you so
Hmm.
much that they do not care if this guy's okay at his job, bad at his job. They're going to try to, really get behind that person to see you lose. It's like a built-in way to do it. So that's one
Cool.
thing you can do. And then I think also creating, it creates the pace. Like when you're a heel, you dictate the pace of the match. So if I wanted to go slow, if I wanted to go fast, I'm kind of in charge of that. And the best way to get the crowd to hate you is take away everything they love about the person you're working with. They go for their big fancy move, you move out of the way. They go for their big thing, you stop them. And it's just constantly keeping them down and down until they can't take it anymore. And then when you feel them getting ready to come up one more time and you're like, I'm going to let the lid off this. And now I'm going to start losing my traction. I'm going to start losing my control over the match. The babyface comes up, they start losing their shit. And just when they think they're going to get the finish, you stop them one more time. And everybody goes, oh, that's the best. Because
Yeah.
now you have created like hills and valleys in the match.
Sure.
And if I'm feeling, I feel this all the time. If I'm in the middle of the match, and let's say we planned it to a T and it's not going the way I don't want it to go, fuck it, slow it down. You wanted to see him? He's on the floor right now. And I'll say that to you. This is who you paid money to see? Look at him. His fucking ass, I'll step on his face. He's on the floor right now. I'll make sure he's looking at him too. Be like, look at your hero right here. There's an emotional thing that happens there, even though they know it's not real,
Right. Yeah.
you know? And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is your favorite guy right here? And I'm like, this guy? And then what you do is then you just like dig in deeper. Then you roll him out of the ring, you hang him over the guardrail. Like, this guy, touch him. This is the last time you're going to touch this guy while he's fucking breathing. Throw him in the ring. This is the finish. Go for the pile driver. He slips out. He hits a move. 1, 2, 3. They lose their shit because now I've given you something to want versus just like,
Yeah.
this guy sucks. Here's the finish. Boom. 1, 2, 3.
Gotcha.
And I think
Yeah.
that is what makes great heels because I think a nice person or a level-headed person would know like, well, nobody acts like that. Like I wouldn't act like that. I would do things this way. So what I do is I just let myself go the other direction. I just let myself completely off the rails, like how I would never logically act or talk to a person. And that
I
creates,
think
I think,
And I
um,
think that's the thing that endures people or endears people to sports, right? Like the way it was described to me, a bunch of my the guys in that other group, they've done some Ring of Honor stuff and things like that, and they were talking about how it's like a kid dressing up for Halloween. For like
Yeah,
that brief period of time, you get to be somebody you wouldn't get to otherwise. I feel like that's why a lot of folks, like, because you see a lot of these interviews. CVV does great interviews with a lot of different wrestlers and stuff like that. And one of his things is like you talk to the guys about heels versus, faces and stuff like that. And he says all the time, he's like the heels, like the guys that say like they play heel or they turn heel or whatever, they're like, it's fun. They're like, I get to
it
say
is.
and do things that I normally would not ever say or do. And people can't be mad at me because I'm just playing a part essentially. And that goes back to the whole like it's fake, it's scripted and stuff like that. The ones that I think are truly masters of their crafts are the ones that keep that shtick going into their real life, like MJF. Um, like
100%.
like he's a lovable heel, but like how he does his interviews, that smug arrogance, like I think it's funny personally. Like I laugh every time I listen to him talk in an interview because you could tell the interviewer doesn't know if he's being real or not. And I'm like, that's how you know somebody's good at their craft. But a question I had to you about, like, we're going back to like the training and stuff like that. If you like your training style, like, in terms of like getting ready for matches and stuff like that, what would you label your training style? Like you mentioned CrossFit and stuff like that, but like, is there a particular method, program, modality of some sort that like you would stick to? And I'm asking this because there's probably going to be some people on here that are like, hey, like because you're like you said, like people could be in shape, but they're not in ring shape. And they're like, I can do that. And so like I just want to give them just a little bit of an insight of the different
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
including to bring this complete package to that performance and stuff. So with like your training and stuff like that, obviously you have your in-ring training, making sure you don't get rusty, your moves, your skill sets and stuff like that. But like in the gym, like what is your mode of training that you do that you feel like prepares your body best to handle the rigors of a match, of a tour of any sorts, or like any long stretch of like these
Mhm.
these these different events that you have to go to and put on? Because there's also the aspect of
Yeah.
travel, and like you're not going to be on top of your recovery all the time. Like you don't have the comforts of your home and stuff. So I'm kind of curious what all goes into that process for you to bring that package to the people.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because it's kind of looking like it is right now. I mean, I'm sure John is kind of seeing there's like a little shift in me, and um, I can always tell, and I know Amy can tell too. Like my fiance, she could tell when I'm about to start wrestling
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
because like when I'm doing my normal stuff, I'm a big fan of like obviously like just like basic lifts. Like I'm a 5x5 guy. I think that's always been the best for me, whether it's all my
yeah, yeah,
basic lifts and with I think that has always been the best way to keep myself focused without getting because like training programs I think can create anxiety in athletes because they're like, oh, I got to do this tomorrow or I got to. And I think 5x5s have always been good for me because I could just focus on just like
yeah,
heavier sets with good control, a lot of banded stuff just to keep myself under some consistent tension. But longer, like grindy, simple workouts, believe it or not, like here's a perfect workout. If I were to say what's a perfect pro wrestler's workout, it's the hero workout Laredo. It's 6 rounds, 400-meter run, 24 air squats, 24 push-ups, 24 walking lunges. Simple. You can't get hurt on the intensity. It's just you versus work. And I
yeah,
think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
combined with like really strict strength training will keep your
Yeah.
joints healthy. I think bands, like me, I talk to you all the time, John. Like band work, I think is great, especially on like deadlifts and like I like even doing like overhead squats with like bands hanging off the ends for the stabilization side. I want my body to not feel that it's going to get hurt by the work, because it's already scary enough that I'm in a ring that moves, I'm getting punched and I'm getting hit and slammed. So like if I can contain my own movement and keep it as tight as possible in training, keep my joints healthy, keep my conditioning high, I feel that in the match I can keep my thinking clear enough to not get hurt because I'm so fatigued. And I think that's something that like once you're strong enough and you know that like I can bear a lot of abuse, through high repetition or very strict, strict press, RDLs, all that stuff like that. It'll keep me really tight and contained, but also be able to take time domains like 20, 30 minute, just like grinder workouts. I've now gotten my mind right to where when I'm 10 minutes into a match and I'm tired and everything's starting to kind of feel like it's getting fatigued, I can keep my mind right where if someone's, running at me, I can at least reposition, get ready, and take on abuse versus being like, oh, they're coming to me and I can't move because I'm too tired right now. So there always has to be that ability to like, yeah, I'm tired, but I can pivot and go. I'm tired, but I can pivot and go. And I think that for me, like workouts like Laredo, or even if you're thinking of maybe like a shorter, kind of like faster
Mhm.
workout, like something like I think it's Lynn. No, it's not Lynn. It's the one where it's like 400-meter run, max pull-ups, like something really steady state, or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
anything where I'm really
Nicole,
doing one
that's
thing.
Nicole.
Yeah, Nicole, I could do something into something, something into something, and there's not as
Sure.
much
Yeah.
thinking because I'm not like worried that I'm going to get hurt, complex gymnastics or anything like that. But I can kind of grind, but keep the focus as being that like I don't want to stop. You know, I might slow down, but I'm not stopping moving because in a wrestling match, it's a fight. And if I stop moving, maybe for like a double down or something where we're showing that we're building up, that should only be used to enhance the story. I shouldn't be not moving because I'm physically so incapacitated because I can't breathe or I'm so tired
Yeah.
that now I'm a liability in the match. That should not be real. The real side should be that I'm ready and I'm showing you that I'm tired, but wait till you see we get back up. We get back up and we can go. Because if I'm really down, and that's the real life part of it. Well, what happens when they need me to support them for a suplex or they need me to
Sure. Yeah.
block a punch? If I'm not ready, I'm going to get hurt or they're going to get hurt. And I think that, that's why with my training, I want to do workouts that are, very specific strength stuff that I can kind of control, but also take long, grindy pieces of, conditioning and be able to stay alive for longer periods. I think
Yeah.
20 to 30-minute time domains are excellent for pro
right,
wrestlers. Something steady state, but not like riding a bike. I need to
right,
be up and
Sure.
down. I
Yeah.
need to be moving, you know?
nice.
So
All right.
I think,
So
John, you asked me another question right in the beginning. I think I missed it.
yeah, I'm trying to think of what it was now. Oh, I did ask you a little bit
That's all right.
about like your career. Like, how did you get to that point of holding a title?
Oh, so and this is like one of the things that I think is so funny, like about indies, right? If you got the belt, I don't think it necessarily means you're the best. I think it means that the company has the most faith in you to take whatever their idea is and make the title mean something. So like
Mm,
I've never been a big title guy. And it's probably just because I say I don't want it. I believe it or not, like towards the end of my wrestling career, I just like talking to guys and mentoring guys and just making them better. Even though I know I was never amazing, I feel there are the athlete and then there's the coach. And sometimes the athlete never transitions into the coach really well. But I think sometimes
yeah.
athletes could be better coaches than they ever were an athlete. And I really believe that. And I think
Yeah.
for me, I fully feel that me speaking to somebody and making them get better has been what I'm supposed to do. I mean, I'm sure John talked to you, but I've worked with so many different people in pro wrestling that
Yeah.
are eons more talented than me. And I don't take credit for their talent. They're the best. But I will say, like, I try to be a good voice of reason so that they don't realize that they miss their own talent. Because I think that's a big
I love
thing.
that.
For me, I never was the most talented, but I had an undying desire to do it, and I got as good as I could be. And then I realized that, I'm 5'7". I ain't going to be in the WWE, man. 5'7", dude. I can't get 6'2".
Right.
But I also realized that it wasn't wrestling ability that kept me back.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
They already had a guy that looked like me, I'm sure, but
Sure.
you could try to cling on to that and be like, no, this is going to be my legacy. Or you could just go, you know what? Maybe it's not me, but maybe it's someone else, but I could be a part of that process. And I
Sure.
think
Yeah.
now more than ever, I want to have one last match or two just to like finish, but I don't want to be, it isn't about me. It's just for me. I want to have my match, but I would love to work with others, coaching and helping out more just because I think, you only have so much time. And if you're realistic about your time in pro wrestling, you can use that time to elevate everything. All the ships rise. If I'm
Yeah.
just worrying about just me, it's a selfish thing. And as time passes me, my legacy is going to be I wrestled till I was done and then I was done. You know,
Yeah.
and
I,
I
I
think
I love
that's
that. And I love your mentality about like wanting to be there to help others, right? Like I said at the beginning, like you do such a phenomenal job coaching at the gym. Like I love taking your classes and everybody else does too, that it makes sense, you know, that you would have that mentality of like, yes, I like performing, but I want to help somebody else get better because you can see that in your personality as you coach already. So, you know, I think anybody that gets that opportunity to work with you, having, you know, been in your classes and seeing how you coach and interact with everybody, I think anybody in the wrestling world that gets that opportunity to work with you would be, you know, foolish not to take it. Because of your passion and your desire to help everybody. So I know we're on a short window here because I know Tom's got to be somewhere. But I do want to wrap up with a little fun thing. You know, you were a heel, like your career, that's your thing. And your explanation of why is awesome. I love that, right? Because I would not have like getting to know you in the gym had I not, you know, been told that that was what you were primarily. I would have always thought like Craig's a baby face because he's just the nicest guy. So your explanation why being a heel, like that makes so much sense. So with that, as we're getting ready to kind of wrap up, I want to know everybody's top three like wrestling heels of
Oh,
all
yeah.
time. And Craig, let's start with you, man. You've got like the most in-depth experience, and you may kick out some names that like we never thought of.
it's funny. This list changes because I've been asked this a lot, and I always like it changes, and then you think, and then you remember someone else, and then you think like, is it only like WWE guys, or like do I like guys in the indies better? And then I always like kind of play with it, but like number one is corporate rock,
Yeah.
dude. When he was like the
Yep.
corporate rock and he was wearing like the
That was
jumpsuit
good.
and shit, that was the best because I even hated it. You know what I mean? As a
Right.
kid, I was like,
Yeah.
and then as I
He
got
was a good
older,
guy.
I like learned to appreciate how crazy that era was. Like that was they essentially took the most likable, like, as we know him now, the most
Yeah.
likable pro wrestler and made him so unrecognizably terrible. Like even though it was the era and he kind of wasn't like he was later, but
Yeah.
to show someone that now, that's the craziest heel. Like it's the craziest one. But yeah, I was a huge fan of that. I always hated The Rock as the Rock, but that would be number one. Um, Number two, you know what? And it's simple and it's really obvious one now, but I got to say MJF to an extent because he's one of the only people these days that keeps the kayfabe side of
Yeah.
things. Like he carries that, dude. It doesn't matter which way. And it's funny. I shouldn't be probably saying this, but that dude is the nicest dude ever. Like if you really know him as a human being, he's like the nicest human being. But you see him at a show, he talks shit to you like he's MJF. You pay for a video like they do those like cameo videos. He's MJF in the
Yeah.
video. You see him on the street, he's MJF in the street. Interview, he's MJF in the interview. There's no one
Right.
that does that. That's a
Yeah.
complete dead thing, and that's I think is such a great thing to have
I
as
think
far
I
as
think
like
Yeah.
it's a lost
skill.
art.
Yeah. It's
It is,
definitely
and
awesome.
even me, I can't do it. I can be in the match telling the entire state of Illinois to go fuck themselves. And then after the match, I'm like shaking hands and kissing babies and shit. It's just one time I wrestled this 350 Brewfest in Tinley Park over here. I wrestled 350 Brewfest. It was a wrestling match and then a band. Wrestling match and a band. And the band Real Big Fish was about to play. They were the main band, and we were the main event before Real Big Fish. I started my match by grabbing a microphone that was not for us. And I get on the mic and I go, hey, and everybody is looking at Real Big Fish, like 1,000 people. And they all turn around and I go, hey, Real Big Fish fucking sucks. And I just dropped the microphone in the ring and they all just stared at me. And then the match started. And I was like, that's one way to get them to look at me. It was
Yeah.
simple and stupid. They were like, fuck that guy. But then it changed the whole thing. So,
Yeah.
um, last heel. That's I think of a really good one that's like different. That's a really good question. Come back to me for my third
All right,
one. I think
Tom,
this.
top three.
I already said one of them, Roddy Piper. Always gonna be
Yeah.
one of my favorites. Like my favorite quote of all time with him is when he used to do Piper's Pit. And just when you have all the answers, I'm gonna change the questions. Like just fucking love it. Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. I
Hmm.
used to absolutely despise that individual as a kid. I'm like, this fucking guy is so good at everything. Like, screw him.
The football video is the
Yeah,
The
the
best.
football
football
video
video,
is still to
or
this
like
day, dude.
like
Yeah.
him just hitting a golf ball like a million miles. I'm just like, screw this guy. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way he's. And then his finisher, I thought was lame, and I'm like, how do people get pinned with this? Like, this is so stupid. So he was another one. So those were two. And then in terms of like people that I feel like really just like lean into, like we're talking about like that breaking down the fourth wall, MJF, Jericho, Chris Jericho. I feel like his
Oh yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
heel run it's a tie for me with two, so I'm cheating a little bit, but like it's Scott Steiner and Jericho, and during their
Steiner
WCW
was
days, because in the WCW days, how they were on like their in the matches was how they were outside of like there were always reports of like Jericho like snubbing kids for
yeah.
autographs and stuff like that as he was walking out of the stadium, or like Scott Steiner, his whole thing was like he's like you're fat, and like he would do that to people in public. Like it was just those two guys like keeping that persona going. And like you
Yeah.
talk to Scott now and he's like, I feel like such a jerk. He goes, I see people that like when they were like 12 years old, I told them they were fat, and they come up to me as adults and they're like, you said this to me. And he's like, I'm so sorry, like I didn't mean it, kind of like. So those are,
Right.
so like that WC era style heel, and I feel like those were the two real big heels in the WCW era, especially towards the end. There was
Yeah.
Jericho and then Steiner, and then like I said, my all-time favorite wrestler and I think best heel ever is Piper. I hated that he never got a title shot. And then as a kid, personally, that person that when they came on camera, that I was just like, "Fuck you," was Kurt Hennig.
Yeah. Um,
Henning one is good. I didn't even think about
Henning,
that.
yeah, Henning's
That's
really
awesome.
good. So I'm gonna go back because I started watching wrestling like early 80s, like as a kid, right? Where it was on at like midnight on the West Coast, and like you had to like sneak out and stay up late and watch it on like old TV. And I remember the guy that like no matter what, was just you did not like him. They never put him in a position to even remotely be liked, and he was always a perpetual bad guy, was the Iron Sheik.
Yes.
Like the Iron Sheik to me, like was just, he came out, he was smug, he was arrogant, he would get on the mic and tell everybody America sucked and how terrible everybody was. Um, and some of his like battles were solid. Like he just and to that like idea, like he never dropped that persona.
Mm-mm.
Like it never once, right? Never once did that come down. So he's on my list for sure. One that I think, and this guy's still wrestling and he's still active.
I think his social media until his death was like cinema. I loved because that was how he talked in real life, was how he talked during his promos. So watching him like on Twitter talking shit to somebody and you could hear like the words being said as he, especially like anytime he
The
would
all
troll,
caps.
anytime he
Yeah.
would troll Hulk Hogan, like I was like, this guy is the man. I didn't appreciate him enough as a kid, but as an adult, I'm like, I literally kept my Twitter account for so long just to like see who Iron Sheik was talking shit to.
Dude, I would boo the TV when he came on. That's how
That's
but you
great.
appreciate it like as you get older. Um, I would say this guy's still wrestling now. He's still kind of a big star, but I think when you think of modern heels, right? He doesn't hold it the same as like MJF does, but to me, he's just that guy that like you're like, God, what a dick. And
Hmm.
that's The Miz. Like The Miz to me,
That's a
like
good
when
one.
he does stuff, and he's like when you see interviews with him, he has a very similar like mindset that you do, Craig, is like he doesn't really care as much about all the accolades, even though in the ring, like it seems like he does. Like his thing is like he doesn't want to be a baby face. He just wants to help guys get over. Like and he does such a good job. Like there's never a moment, even when they paired him with like R-Truth as like a tag team partner, right? Even then I was like, nah, I don't like him. Like you can't do anything to this
Yeah.
guy that I'm gonna like. He's just annoying. And then I would say one of the best heel personas that has ever been, in my opinion. And he's not even a wrestler, right? He was a manager, and that was Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Mm.
Oh,
Bobby the
that's good.
Brain Heenan had absolutely no redeeming qualities as a human being and was just, you're just like, you'd watch him on TV and you're like, you don't wrestle. Like, you're arrogant like you do. Like, you've accomplished great things and you talk down to everybody. Everybody. And,
That's
you
good.
know, I feel like he kind of like I love Paul Heyman. I think Paul Heyman's amazing. And I think Paul Heyman's brilliant. And I think Bobby the Brain Heenan really, when you go back and you look at how he did all of his promo stuff, um, kind of laid the groundwork for what like Paul Heyman is and does now. So yeah.
Those are all. And I think now that you said that, I think with me, I think the reason it's hard is I think I'm situationally like
Yeah.
married to certain characters and timelines, and that's what makes it. Like I thought of my third one, and I'm like, it's funny that that's the third because I can't think of anything that I've connected to more. But
Yeah.
stay with me. This is a modern one. The cerebral assassin Triple H.
Mm. That's a
when
Yeah.
he when he had the
That's a
thing where
great one,
Rikishi hit
dude.
Austin. But that one was awesome because you knew, and at least even when I was a kid, I knew. I'm like, okay, Triple H is so fucking good at being
Yeah.
Triple H, and it involves so much more around him that I think the aura of it, like the thing where like he showed up to like Test's wedding with Stephanie, and then he still got Stephanie, and then there was like the Vince thing, and somehow we liked Vince in '99. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but like we
So weird.
sympathized with Vince when he was losing his daughter. How good of a heel was Triple H to where you wanted Vince to win in '99
Mhm.
Yeah.
against, in that match when they did like the street fight or whatever. And then when Stephanie like kicked her dad in the nuts and then they hugged over his body in the ring, I was like, this is crazy. But that
Yeah.
era of Triple H, I think, is the best for me. I didn't even really think of it until I was like, I think I'm an era guy. Like, because I
Yeah.
can like,
Yeah.
they're not a heel
And
anymore,
I think a lot
but
of people
like
forget.
that, like those stick with me.
And I think a lot
Yeah.
of people forget about the Attitude Era because everybody was playing such an anti-hero role at that time that
Yeah.
it was hard to decipher between heels and faces. Like there were no like there were only a handful of like genuine faces and genuine heels. Everybody else in the middle like kind of rode that line and
Yeah.
just based
Yeah,
on where the need was, they would shift.
They
Like
would flip back and forth.
look at
Yeah.
The
Like any
Rock.
given
You
moment.
look at the Big
Steve
Show. Look
Austin.
at Undertaker, Austin, Triple H, Shawn Michaels. Like those guys would just kind of like rotate. And like, all right, do we hate like that was part of the reason why I stuck to
yeah,
WCW because I got like hard. I had a hard time being like, all right, is he a good guy or a bad guy now? Like, do we
Yeah.
like this
yeah,
guy or do we not like this guy now? Like, it was very hard to tell. And as a kid, like, you didn't understand it. But as an adult, you're like, oh, that's really good. And that's really smart. And that's why they were,
yeah,
eventually able to win the Monday Night Wars because those characters were so relatable because
Mhm.
of how they
yeah.
operated in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I don't know if you guys are video game guys because I'm not anymore, but I always used to. I loved Twisted Metal as a game, like
Oh,
on
Yeah.
yeah.
PlayStation.
Yep. Oh
And
yeah.
when they
Yeah.
released Twisted Metal Black on PlayStation 2, I made this joke early on as a kid. I'm like, man, this feels like Attitude Era wrestling because all the
Yeah.
characters had all these over the top character arcs, and they were
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
bad people, but they sort of like you liked them, and that's what like the Attitude Era felt like. It felt like everybody was kind of a bad guy. Like you got
Yeah.
Undertaker, and you're like, I like him, but like at the core of what he is, he's kind of
Yeah.
like a fucking demon, or like Kane. You're like
hmm
this; these are not people
Kane.
that
Yeah.
should be
Kane. It's
heroes.
great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
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 No, that's good. I,
So,
I,
but
I
no,
like that.
that's cool. I would really like that era. Yeah, I don't think
And that was
anybody
Yeah.
can
kind of
It's
ever
like,
great.
and
match
that
that
was kind
era.
of why I was sad about the whole like when WCW folded because I felt like had WWE when they absorbed a lot of those contracts and brought a lot of those guys over, if they had let them just keep their characters, like
hmm
one of the biggest things that I absolutely despise Vince McMahon for was turning Scott Steiner face. Like He
Yeah,
was not
didn't
he was
work.
not, he was not a face. He was a heel, and it was really hard. And you could tell he struggled in the role to like play a
Yeah.
face. Like it
Yeah.
was just, and it's just one of those like I always wondered like how much better that product could have been after like the quote unquote invasion had they just let some of those guys that came over like the whole DDP stalker thing. He's not a bad guy. He's a face, but they had him playing heel. It's just like that was kind of mine, but like that era was prime in terms of like you could just grab any dude from that era, put them in like now either organization, and they'd be a top guy like easily, just based on like their ability to
100%.
and all the things that they
Yeah.
do and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it was always a fun era for me to watch and such. Um, so really appreciate that. For folks who don't necessarily know you, I know a lot of people that will watching this will, but like, where can people find out more information about you? Like, what's next for you? Do you have any shows coming up? Like what's coming down the pipeline for you right now?
So right now, I'm quietly, I guess not so quietly since I'm saying it to you, but I'm quietly training my body just to get back to what I feel is like a good base level. So I started last year at 274. I was just blown up and I just was beaten up. I dropped the weight. I'm down about 50 pounds. So I'm just trying to keep my body moving well and try to recover past a couple weird injuries. Like I got like a little rotator cuff thing, but see how my body feels when I kick it into gear and then see what the next stage of like looking at getting back in the ring feels like. Not for any kind of crazy run or anything like that, but I do. And it's going to be a low key thing. I'm not going to try to make it a big deal, but I do want to do like a little mini wrestling tour for myself. I haven't really talked to anybody about this. Maybe it's the first time we're talking about it,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'd love to go and just like work a couple of my favorite people if I can, and just have like maybe a couple people that are brand new. Like I would love to work with people who have never really gotten a chance to work with, too many people. Maybe they're newer, and do a couple shows in areas that I used to wrestle a lot. Like I'd like to do like a St. Louis, like a Philly,
Nice.
obviously a Chicago to end it. Maybe like a Milwaukee, like because I always wrestled in Milwaukee a lot. So just go and hit every area one more time, just for me, really anything, but not go with the idea that I have to have this banger main event match. I almost just want to kind of quietly like show up, work with someone new, or work with a friend of mine, have a good match, and then at least have it be like that was what I wanted to stop with,
Right.
versus like have it pulled out of my hands. Because my last wrestling match that I had, the last real one that I did, I was still champ. I was wrestling at Iron Spirit Pro in Bloomington,
Yeah.
Illinois. I was the world champ there, and I just knew my back was not working, and it was hard to hold the guy for my
Yeah.
own finishing move. It's my own finishing move. I could barely pick
Yeah.
him up, and I felt like the writing on the wall was that I was going to hurt somebody or hurt myself really
Right,
bad.
right. That
Yeah.
makes
So
sense.
um,
Sure.
I'd like to go back and just have a couple good, just finisher matches, just so where I could be
Yeah.
like, that was the end and I'm done. So
Cool.
I'll probably start leaning into that a little bit more. Like right now, if you follow me on socials, I'm just posting old backyard wrestling and indie stuff as part of a project. My project right now is I'm digitizing all my old stuff. So I figure while I'm finding it, might as well put it out there. People seem to like watching it.
Where
Nice.
can they find you on social? Like, what's your social handles for everybody?
I am on Instagram. My name on Instagram is, I never really pay attention. It's Craig X Mitchell. And then if you look me under Craig Mitchell, really anywhere else, I have an X account on Facebook. I don't really use the other two, but Instagram, if you follow me right now and you like violence, that's all I'm posting. It's just people
It's
getting dropped on their head.
amazing right now. Like, it's so amazing, guys. Like, I cannot, if you're a wrestling fan, I cannot stress enough, like, follow Craig on Instagram right now because the videos, they're epic. Like, so much fun to watch and so much violence. And in there are moments you're just like, oh my God. Like, I think I've come into the couple of times to the gym now and been like, dude, I saw the video. Like, this is insane. Right. And we're talking about it in the gym. So definitely, like, again, it's Craig X Mitchell. Is that what it
Yeah,
was?
Craig X
Or
Mitchell.
Yep.
Craig
Come
X
on, man.
Mitchell? Look at me, man. Even with my Alzheimer's kicking in. So
There
guys,
you go.
definitely make sure to follow Craig. And also, dude, if you guys are in the Chicago area, Craig coaches at CrossFit Warehouse. Um, Phenomenal coach, right? Absolutely phenomenal coach. So like come in, jump in a class with Craig and get that experience as well, because I highly recommend it.
Good deal. All right. Well,
Exactly.
Craig, really appreciate your time, dude. That was awesome. We don't really get to blend wrestling and fitness all the time. So when John brought this up, I was just like, he's like, "Do you want to do this episode?" I was like, yeah. Plus, it gives me a chance to pull out my championship belt, so why not? But yeah, dude, I appreciate your time a lot. For Strength Agenda Radio, my name is Tom. That beautiful gentleman down there is Craig. Check him out at his next show. Come down to CrossFit Warehouse, get a workout in with him. And then that cranky, dementia-ridden person over there is
I
John.
don't know who you are.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. All right, we will see you guys later. Thank you guys.
Bye, guys.